All right, now this is the fun part. So if you look down at your participant screen, hi everyone, welcome. You'll start seeing the numbers rolling in quickly, everyone that is logging on. We have over 350 people registered today, so that number is going to tick up really quickly. Love seeing everybody that's logging in. Use the chat to tell us who you are, where you're from. We'd like to know. Hi, Lori. Thanks for being here. No doubt, Bob and Tim, you're going to see lots of names that you recognize popping in on the side here.
Yeah.
Nashville's in the house. I think you guys both do tours into that area.
Hey, Bob Hoffman.
Oh, Bob.
Hey, Lindsay. Hey, Michael. Hardy, that is. Holy cow. Estella. Don. Right. Well, I can't keep up now.
You guys were afraid nobody would want to hear what you had to say.
Oh.
No pressure now.
Yeah.
Lots of friends on the side here wanting to just touch base and see how everyone is. We have about an hour, and this number is going to keep going. It's going to keep popping up as we go. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Just as a quick note, if you're new to the webinars, my name's Sherry Bailey. I'm with Connect Travel. We started these about a month ago as a way for people to stay engaged, to continue the conversation and to work together as an industry that we do, and to come out of this stronger than we were when we went into it. Today, I'm really, really fortunate because we're going to be talking about domestic travel. Again, Bob and Tim, no pressure, but I think every webinar I've sat on has said that domestic's going to come back first. So everyone's on pins and needles trying to figure out when that is and what they can do to help you come out of this. But we have two great panelists with us. Bob Cline with US Tours, pillar in the industry. No doubt everyone knows him and has been doing domestic tours for years and years. And I'm sure along with all the other attendees, when I was in my DMO days, fought to get an appointment with him at every show that I attended. So Bob, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
And Tim Patrick with Mayflower Tours, also another pillar in the domestic tour industry, and another person that I used to fight like cats and dogs to get a meeting with when I worked at Visit Tampa Bay. Tim, thrilled that you're here with us, and thank you for taking the time.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure everyone is wondering, because we did have one other panelist that was supposed to be with us today, Irene Vecchi, who is Global Procurement for Flight Center. She is going to try and join in if she can this hour. We're all dealing with this crazy, and it's hit a little close to home for Irene and her family. So she's had a family emergency that is related to this crazy pandemic that we are trying to figure out how to navigate through. So please keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers. But she has given me a ton of notes, so I will interject whenever we come to something that we can talk about that includes Flight Center. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and this is the way we start all of them. Bob, Tim, I'm going to call on each of you just to tell us a little bit about your company, what your main focuses are for that company, and how you're doing. So Bob, let's start with you.
Okay. We're a wholesale company, free-form groups, primarily the ABA and the select travel markets.
Wonderful. And how's everything going for you right now, Bob?
Personally or financially?
Well, personally, you look great. So business-wise, I'm slow right now.
Older and gaining weight, and I own a business that doesn't have any customers. So, it's a good day.
So you're telling us that our way to help you is not to send you any type of, fake
business
get you through this.
Yes.
Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm not not a work from home person. I really like being in the office where everything is and stuff. But you know, we're doing well. We've pretty much are not operating anything through June right now. We had some March departures, and then that pretty much stopped. So at Mayflower, basically, I'm in charge of the product development for North America, so Canada and the U.S., and sometimes a little bit of Mexico.
Wonderful. And I think I saw, I mean, both of you, when we talked about, when we had the call earlier, talked that, you know, you don't have anything through June. Bob, you might still have one June departure. Tim, do you have things going on later in the year?
Well, we haven't done any cancellations past June. We're still optimistic. We're taking it one day at a time, and just waiting to see what happens. So it's all right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are many challenges right now. Is there a way to pinpoint what some of the biggest challenges have been, short of you working from home, Tim?
For me?
Yeah. Or for the company, kind of some of the biggest challenges that you guys have had right now?
You know, I think I know from our sales standpoint that we're still we're very active in staying in touch with our customers. People that were on departures that we had that were possibly going to go in April or May, we're pushing them to the fall. We're trying to keep them engaged in wanting to travel and to trying to stay optimistic. And you know, that's kind of all we can do right now from the sales standpoint. From operations, as we said at the beginning, before everybody jumped on, you know, I'm pricing into 2022 right now. And our goal is to, you know, once we kind of get back to whatever the next normal is going to be, to kind of hit the ground running, have all of our 21 product out there and 22 products so that people can get back into it.
And, you know, it's funny that you say 21 and 22. I think everyone's kind of understanding the point that 20 is what we can salvage from it. We would all like to reschedule things instead of cancel. So we're kind of pushing that down the road. You mentioned product for 21 and 22. Irene from Flight Center had said the same thing, that they're contracting 21 and 22 and would love to hear from people. Bob, what are you looking at for product into next year?
We're opening up a couple of new things. We in cooperation with Leisure Group Travel Magazine, we're introducing bounce back tours, and these exist for the first 60 days after the quarantines are lifted. We have destinations that hotels are willing to take half price to get somebody in the room. Theaters doing the same thing. We're managing at a cost. Leisure Group Travel does the marketing. So we're playing with that in the short term. We've taken 2 of our event tours and we've made ABA an offer to join with us on these and turn them into tourism recovery parties. Our Rockin' the Boardwalk in Virginia Beach and New Year's Eve in Myrtle Beach, both will have 14 or 15 buses all by themselves. That's what we typically get. We've got room for another 20 or 30 buses though. The facilities are large enough. So we'd love to see this as a place where the industry comes together and they take some great photos and dance in the moonlight, you know, celebrate the end of the virus. And also today, we are introducing Tour Tennessee. We opened Tour Smokies last year, a receptive operation in Pigeon Forge. It was very successful in the first year, so we're expanding to the entire state. All of this is kind of current focus for the fall and the winter and early 21. We do have bank groups that are buying in 22 different things. But right now, we're just trying to still pick up the pieces for this year and early in the next year.
Understandable. So I'm gonna I'm going to jump down to, we know we're contracting for 21 and 22, but you mentioned something. I love the idea of bounce back tours. And I know that everyone that has tuned into this is going to be asking, what else are you doing? Will you consider something else? How do we get involved? So I would prepare yourself for those questions. But one of the things that we've learned from other types of instances that we've gone through on a smaller scale were enticements generally help people come out of this. You mentioned the hotels are willing to take half price on the rooms to get someone in there now. Are there other enticements that our suppliers should be looking at that are going to help you at the end of this year or moving into 2021 when those sales start picking up?
Yes. What destination, what enticement, that's a difficult thing to pin down. The whole concept with the bounce back is, you know, a dollar spent in tourism recirculates 7 times. A social posting made by somebody in tourism can recirculate hundreds of times. But we just need to get people on the road. We need to get people talking about travel and sharing their experiences. If we can do that in the short term, it'll benefit all of us in the long term because, again, the social media are talking about travel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and I think
what have you found that helps Mayflower or has in the past with some type of enticement or value add?
well, I think with you know, as I said, we haven't written 2020 off by any means. So we fully intend to operate programs this year. The load factors may be a lot lighter. And if they are, so if we're running coaches with, you know, dozen to 20 people instead of 40 or 50 people, you know, we'd like to be able to call upon our suppliers to make sure that they're still honoring group rates if we fall below the number, or maybe even help us out on the bottom line. You know, if we're going to take the hit on all the fixed costs of putting a tour manager out and a motor coach on the road, that we kind of work together. And that has happened in the past. I've been through, you know, something similar back in on September 11th when the bottom fell out of international travel and everyone moved to domestic travel, and it was a tough go. So we got through that. We'll get through this. Absolutely.
Well, and from the Flight Center side, Irene, as I mentioned, said she was scheduling both or contracting both 21 and 22. And one thing she was looking for was rollover rates into 21 that would keep things easy, make, you know, and help them as a company. She asked for everyone to look at their cancellation rates or cancellation timing, and if that could be within a 24-hour period than a longer period, that would help her as well. And this is what I found interesting. She still has some bookings coming in for 2020, but everything right now is that booking has to be completely refundable and completely changeable. And she wants to entice people to book now. So she'd like to talk with people about free nights. Book 2, get 1 free, you know, everything that we've done and seen in the past, but to have it specifically for somebody that would book right now and get something on the books. Is that something that has worked for both you and Tim, for you and Bob in the past?
Yes. I think Tim's right on. Suppliers need to give us those comps. We might only have 8 or 9 rooms, but we brought you somebody. We've got people traveling. We've got to rebuild the whole industry. Paying for that comp room with half the bus is hard for us. Paying for the bus itself is hard. So whatever incentives you can give us, they're going to be needed.
Right. You know, one of the concerns that I have with, you know, my job is basically to price, you know, 12 to 18 months into the future. And so I do a lot of estimating on costs because, you know, I understand that suppliers may not necessarily be able to commit to rates and stuff, but I'm just worried about coming into 2022 and you know, the $30 that I had budgeted for that dinner now becomes 38 or 40. I mean, I'm concerned about where these rates are going to be 2 years from now if we're all back at work and you know, we got suppliers that are trying to make up for everything that's lost in 1 year. Is that a concern, do you think, Bob?
Yes, but I don't know how to gauge it. Any advice? I'm willing to take it.
Well, my rule of thumb is 3%. Isn't the I mean, there's hoteliers on here. I've seen hoteliers on this as it's scrolling through. Isn't there?
Yeah,
Are there any
absolutely
hoteliers
there
out
are.
there? So, you know, based on, I mean, isn't there a percentage out there that the amount of, there's a percentage of your overhead that your sales goes back into your business to maintain your property? So usually that kind of percentage is the number that I generally go with in terms of seeing increases over from 1 year to the next. I mean, some hotels don't raise their rates for 3 years and then they'll do a 5% increase, you know, and others will gradually go 2% a year or 3% a year. And that's kind of what I work with based on the history of that hotel that I've been working with.
We just had one of our attendees, Lena, do a quick note to us that said they try to do 1 to 3% year over year. And I think that in this time and what we've learned from past events, everything we're doing now, communication and being open-minded on how we move together in the future is what's going to help us.
And then, you know, another thing too is, you know, a lot of times, so the people that are on here, if they're hoteliers or if they're working for an attraction or a restaurant, I know a lot of the times you're not the decision maker, but we need you guys to be able to go to you know, for lack of a better word, the bean counter, who says, no, we're raising our rates, to be able to be on our side to say, hey, you know, this is what we've been through. We can't afford to raise the rates this much. We need to kind of be a little more moderate, or maybe hold it for a year. And if we hold it for a year, maybe we'll get more business.
If you do quote us rates for 2022, and it takes us 3 or 4 months to get the customer to commit to it, you need to have kept a note on what that quote was. We still need to be able to deliver. With bank customers especially, it takes several months to get them to confirm.
That's a great reminder, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So we're getting a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to try to get to all of them. One of them was, what are you hearing for your customers? Tim, you mentioned that you're not writing off 2020 yet. You still have some things in the pipeline. From clients that you're talking to, when there's no magic crystal ball, but when do you think, you know, basically talking with them, that they might be willing to travel again?
Well, so we kind of deal with two different animals. We deal with the group leader who makes the decision for the group, and then we have our FIT people who just call in. So what I've seen with the group leaders is the groups are pushing more to the following year. So if we canceled a March departure for them for this year, they've rebooked it for March of 2021. With the FIT people, we've just tried to push them to the fall. So they wanted to go to the national parks in May. Well, we've got a September departure, you know, push them because those are the onesie twosies that we're moving. Whereas with the groups, it could be groups of 30 or 40. And we may not have the inventory for the fall to move them. So we're encouraging them to jump a year. And a lot of them are doing that.
That's good that they're rescheduling. Bob, what have you heard from your clients?
We don't have the FIT business, so we're all group, but we do have the two types of customers. The bus companies, they're not even thinking about operating anything the rest of this year. They hope they'll have something in the fall, but they're not planning. They're not marketing. They're sitting back shell-shocked. The bankers, they don't have 200 buses sitting out in the yards. So they don't have that same lazy-eyed look. They're planning in the future. We've got one that bought a blue Christmas trip from us for this December, just yesterday. But two different customers.
Absolutely.
Blue Christmas for this year?
Yeah,
Oh, good, good.
anything in
Yeah,
2000.
yeah, I think people fully intend to travel this year. I really do.
Yeah.
That's great. So
Somebody
there's
just
a
made
really quick question. We were talking about keeping quotes, keeping the rate. Lee, thank you for this. In order to keep the rates low or even flat, would you guys be willing to look at different patterns, different days of the week, different arrivals and departures? And I think it goes back to communication and talking with your supplier partners to get that best rate and to move the pattern that works.
Or just tell us what dates you need. If we're coming in on a weekend and you don't need the weekend business, tell us. Most of my customers will move for $1.
That's nice. And Tim, what about you? Is that something that you might be able to do?
It's definitely something we have done in the past. It's a little bit more difficult to break patterns because if there's 30 components on a tour, now I've got to go back to all the remaining 29 to accommodate the 30th. So it depends. I mean, I'm definitely open to the idea, and we have done it in the past, but you know, it might be a little easier said than done.
Absolutely. So question on, I mean, 2020, we know we're just hoping we get something out of it, but moving into 21 and even into 22, do you see what's happened now changing travel patterns in the future? I mean, both of you build programs around an event or a festival or a time of year. Do you see that changing? Do you see you're having to move it a little bit?
In the future?
Yeah.
I don't know. Bob, you do a lot of festivals and stuff. I mean, I can't see Rose Parade changing. Albuquerque Balloon. I mean, I don't know. I could say the Fiesta in San Antonio, they moved from April. They rebooked it for November. So we rebooked it for November and moved our people to November. So,
Okay.
but I don't know if they would keep that, but I know they're trying to salvage that business.
I don't know how to call these trends. Fiesta, that's a one-time event. Kentucky Derby changed to Labor Day. That's a one-time event.
So maybe let's look at it this way. Do you see, I mean, your programs are so varied. You have 2 and 3 day events, you have overnight events, some 7 to 10 day events. Do you see length changing? Do you see the way you operate changing? We've had a lot of questions about cleanliness of buses and temperature change checks or health checks. Do you see any of that changing with the way you have to operate?
I think we're going to see people concerned about sanitary buses for the next 2 or 3 months. And then I think they're going to get over it. And things will get headed back towards normal. The destinations we're going to and the types of trips we're selling, we're always looking for new experiences. The new experience on a trip's important, and that will help us sell a destination in the future. Many of our events will stay the same as they are because it's just something that works.
You know, I'll tell you one thing that's been worked really well for me for the 2022 is there are still a lot of DMOs that are active out there. It's been hard to track people down right now because people have been furloughed and you know, there's different layers of staff that have been, you know, either laid off or furloughed or whatever. But for the most part, the DMOs that I have talked to, they're just, I rely more on them now than ever because there's a lot of smaller attractions and stuff. I just can't get to them. There's nobody that answers. And I understand that. It's a difficult situation. If you're a small museum and you don't have the money to keep the doors open, you're not going to keep the staff. So I appreciate the DMOs out there that are going the extra mile to help.
And that was, I'm looking at one of the questions now, what can DMOs do to help bring your clients to their destinations? And Paul, thank you for that. They're asking what would be most helpful. And that kind of tags on right to that point that you were making, Tim, that sometimes you have a hard time getting in touch with people. You don't know who's at a hotel or who's at a museum. I think every DMO is sitting up straighter right now. I'm an ex-DMO that's saying, we know, contact us. How do they get that information to you? How would you like to receive it? Are you willing to do a virtual fam tour, or do you just want a one-on-one conversation? What's best for you?
Well, for me, it's starting with an email is really the way to get started. Just because I'm not sitting at my desk, I'm sitting at my dining room table. Although if you call me, my phone, everything gets forwarded to my mobile phone, but it's just easier with the amount of files that I have working on right now. The number of different directions I'm going, it's probably easier to start with an email, and then we can figure out a time to talk.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah. Cold calling right now is, I know that you guys want to, but for me, it's difficult to take calls unless I've kind of got the time. And I kind of structure my day in order for me to get the work done that I need to get done, I really kind of have to structure my day. I have specific times when I read emails. I have specific times when I work on tour planning, when I listen to voicemail. Otherwise, I find that's the easiest way to manage my time. And so with an email, you send me an email at 8 o'clock in the morning, you may not, or 10 o'clock in the morning, well, I may have already read my morning email, so I'm not going to look again until noon. Don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm just in a block of time where I'm not reading emails.
So I think, and for everyone on the call and on the webinar, Bob and Tim have both said, share my information. So I'm going to make sure everyone has their contact information. We'll forward that out to everyone so you can contact them. Really good questions coming in as we're talking about clients and where they want to go, and we think travel's going to happen. Do you see a shift, or have they talked to you about a shift in rural destinations? Maybe that might be more interesting to them than the large destinations if there's any unease in traveling. Or do you think people may want to stay closer to home when they start traveling again?
I think they're going to stay closer to home. And I think it just shows how silly the American consumer is. This virus is around the world, and America has more of it than anybody else. We don't want to go anyplace else because it's not as safe as it is here at home. How does that work?
With the talk of Georgia saying that they're gonna open their state and get back to normal and stuff, as stuff starts to happen like that, I don't know how this is all going to unfold. Like if it's just going to be one state here and one state here, but if we're on a bus, and what happens if we have to go through a state that's not open to get to a state that is open? That's the stuff I start thinking about when I start thinking about how we're going to get, how are we going to ship this New England program in the fall when I got to go through 3 states that aren't open?
I didn't think of that, right? I mean, I knew things were going to open and we were going to try to get back to normal in pieces, but I didn't even think about that, Tim.
Yeah.
If anyone listening to the call has ideas, I'm sure that as a group, we would all love to think through that one together. So please put it in the Q&A or give us a chat there. But that's an option that I don't even know how you fix that, Bob.
We don't have security at the border.
Yeah.
It's not like
we just run them overnight.
No getting off the bus.
Right.
Have a light.
I can learn how to drive a bus or a coach. Another question I have for some of the DMOs that are out there is, how are you guys doing with these areas that have really kind of been hit hard? Are you guys formulating a game plan to kind of get through? Like, New York City is, it's been really tough, and you see it a lot in the news. And how are how are they going to bounce back, when did they turn the switch on? What did they do to, you know, promote? How are we gonna do that? How are we gonna get past that? Because people are still gonna want to go to New York City. Just using New York as an example, not picking on them, but you know, there's been other cities and other areas.
Absolutely. So, and it's interesting, John Marshall from New York was one of the ones that asked those questions about rural destinations versus cities. I mean, I think everyone's thinking the same thing, and how do we get our arms around that, and promoting that safe message out to everyone. So it's not just cleanliness of the buses or social distancing, and those are some of the questions we're seeing too. Bob, you mentioned, you know, if you have a bus that's half full, if you have 15 or 20 people, does that also take into effect that you might have to social distance on a bus, or but you're still having to use a 50-person motor coach and you still have to pay for that? You know, and I think everyone's trying to wrap their head around, you know, if it is cleanliness, if it's health, is it social distancing, and how do they help you through that? And if it's a rural destination or a big destination, there's easily, and I just want to say to everyone, your questions are amazing, and we easily have like 40 questions that are waiting for us, and we're trying to get to all of them. If we do not, Bob and Tim have been nice enough to say that we will answer those questions and we will get them back out to you when this is over. But what do you think, Bob?
I heard an airline executive quoted as saying that they're practicing social distancing because they're not filling the center seat. But the truth of the matter is they can't sell the center seats, so it's easy not to do social distancing. But on a bus, on a plane, the air circulates, and you're in a confined area, and social distancing just isn't possible when you're with a group. We're going to have to build up our immunities, cure the disease, get inoculations or something in order to avoid this fear. I don't know what the answer is. But people want to travel in groups. They want to go to theaters and shows. You can't just sell every other seat, keep the show going.
Right. Do you think, and for both of you, Tim, jump in here. Do you think, and Floyd, thank you for this question. Do you think there'll be a realignment in group size? I mean, we clearly are all thinking, hey, we have to do things a little bit differently, but I think right now there'll be a realignment in group size just because we're trying to get the people to travel. But what about in 21 or 22?
Well, I think I think that's a very valid direction that we could go. And if there's any motor coach operators out there, that you see the challenge with that is that it costs just as much money for a motor coach company to put a 52 passenger coach on the road as it does to put a 40 passenger coach. It's you know, okay, maybe it's a little bit less gas, but it's still the same amount of overhead for the cost of the vehicle, the maintenance, the driver, the licenses and fees and everything else. So, you know, so now I'm taking the cost of 50 seats and prorating it over the cost of 30 seats, and it just raises the price. So, I mean, that's a challenge. Smaller buses would be great, but you know, is that really going to decrease the overhead? It's not like you save $100,000 by taking 20 seats out of a bus.
Right.
So, however, that is a valid thing. I mean, it could be. I can see smaller group sizes for sure.
Greed will battle fear in this instance. Somebody can sell 50 seats on a bus, they're going to take the money.
Right.
Right. There are questions and conversations that are happening with municipalities and with cities, talking about certifying hotels or certifying attractions and restaurants for meeting health and safety standards. Do you foresee that becoming a normal part of your SOP, your operating procedure? I think everyone's reaching at straws right now to figure out, you know, what's going to give that safety, that end client, the feeling of safety and security. Do you think that'll move the needle?
I think the thing that'll move it the most is when we quit interviewing infectious disease experts.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah.
We already have a board of health in every town. They shut down restaurants that are unsanitary. We've got the best standards for restaurants and hotels in the world, and the most diseases.
Right. So let's switch to marketing, and doing some partnering together. We know we have 2020 programs that we want to run. We know you're contracting for 21 and 22. How can your attractions, your hotels that you work with, your destinations, how can we work with you to get that message out? Is it that social message that you talked about, Bob, that can hit and move forward? You know, what is that joint marketing assistance that we can work on to make sure your programs run this year?
Grant money's nice. Probably the best example of assistance I can give you is Virginia Beach. We've been doing an event there for 7 or 8 years. They will have 20 or 30 volunteers to come out and walk people off the bus into venues and help seat them. They'll provide some co-op funding throughout the year. They'll carry our event in their portfolios that go to marketplace appointments. Working with someone who's trying to sell you is to your benefit. And nobody does it better than my buddy Jim in Virginia Beach.
Nice shout out there, Jim.
Shout out to Jim Coggins.
Tim, what about you? And before you answer, Bob, grant money is not out of the question, right? Everyone is reviewing their budgets right now. Everyone is looking at how they can help both large and small destinations. So we want to keep that in mind. Not everybody has the money that others do, but certainly want to help.
I said that facetiously.
But there's marketing money out there.
The co-op funding does help. We spend an awful lot of money every year selling to groups, going to 20 trade shows and advertisements and e-blasts, brochures. So yeah, if you can help us with that, it's to your benefit.
Wonderful. And Tim, what are you guys doing with joint marketing or co-op marketing? Or what Bob mentioned with anyone coming out and helping sell your programming? That
is actually a little bit out of my field of expertise. We do have a marketing director and department, and they really, so I don't want to sound like I'm copping out, but it's kind of, but we are doing one thing here, and I'm trying to just pull up the email. There's a hashtag we're trying to get onto our, and I'm not the hashtag guy, so I don't even know how those things, I really don't even know how they work. But it's, so I think we're using that. We're trying to promote that every time we send an email to try and get the word around is dream today, discover tomorrow, something like that. And that's hoping that drives business towards our
I need to step away for a moment. I've got a delivery coming to the door, but I'll be right back.
Okay.
So
I had employees in the office, but I don't.
No worries.
If that's how those work. Is that how they work? The hashtags?
Totally how those work.
Yeah.
We hashtag
Okay.
you on the invitation. So people will go back to Mayflower Cruises and Tours. I'm going to switch to cruises for a minute because I just said it out loud. And both you and Bob work a lot with the cruise market. Have you seen any changes? You know, we know everything we've seen about cruises right now. Have you seen any changes in forward bookings when it comes to some of your cruise programs?
We have not domestically. We do still have some Caribbean. Our Alaska summer programs are gone, but we do have a Caribbean in the fall, and we have some Caribbean stuff in the winter of 21. those bookings, people are still on them. They're still intending to go. Um, as far as I know, and they're on Carnival, and yeah, they're on Carnival. So I think some of it depends on what you see out there.
Right.
You know, what ships or lines have kind of been in the forefront.
We still have a fair amount of business on American Queen and the Empress on the American rivers. I think that is going to be a strong seller for us next year as people try and stay domestic, sensing that being on the Mississippi or the Missouri is a little safer than being on the Nile.
Got it. So more of the river cruises instead of ocean liners. You know, I read a really interesting article that that cruise forward bookings in 21 were actually positive. Not huge increases, but they did have an increase in bookings for 2021. So I just wanted to see if you as tour operators were seeing the same thing in your bookings.
We have some. I've not measured it, but we have some group business doing the international cruises, Caribbean, in 21.
So a lot of questions, and we talked about this earlier when we were prepping for the call. Everyone here wants to know how they can help you, and how they can help you now, maybe how they can help you in the fall, how they can help you next year. What are some of the best things that that we can do? We've talked about co-op marketing and helping sell your programs, but what are other things that we might be able to do to assist you?
I think those of you that are posting anything political or negative on social media ought to quit it. Put up a music video on your destination, a historic video. Be optimistic. Show the good side of travel and forget about saying how bad the country is, how bad your candidate is.
You know what, on a personal level, I agree 100% with that. It's just so depressing to read such negativity, and it just really. But on a business level, you know, I imagine some of you are like me at home. You're working away and you stop and you take a break and scratch the cat or go get a cup of water or whatever. If you're working on itineraries to send to me, I welcome them. Any new ideas, anything that I can work on. The big thing is the pricing. If I'm going into a new area with a new itinerary, and I may not have any concept at all of what pricing is going to be, and I may not be able to get to those secondary suppliers that you've included in order to determine some sort of pricing. So if you can even throw ballpark prices on there, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire 2 years from now and say, you told me it was going to be $10 and now it's 11. You know, I'm not going to do that, but to just throw numbers out there is a great way to help me keep the ball rolling and keep, you know, working. And, you know, it'll entice me to get some groups into your area. And, you know, maybe we'll have a new runaway smash tour.
That's the plan. That would be awesome. And I want to point this out real quick. First, Vecchi, you guys probably all know Vecchi from ABA. Thank you so much for being on the webinar. She has posted that they are gathering information, openings, closings. They're posting it to their Tourism Strong page for operators to access, as well as other suppliers. So as you gather that information, DMOs, hotels, attractions, transportation companies, make sure you send it to Vecchi as well. She's in the chat area, and make sure we'll make sure you get her information as well. We're all in this together, so we want to make sure that all of the information is accessible, so we can get through this. We talked a lot. What I just realized, and thank you, Kevin, for this question. When we talked about incentives or enticements, we focused a lot on the hotel and free rooms and comp policies. I think the comp policy also applies to attractions. But what are value adds from attractions that have worked from you before? Same type of comp policy, but meal vouchers or special VIP events or tours or.
Yeah, well, we've had attractions that have like comped a coach for us to just try it. So we're in the area and we've got an afternoon. Not saying they have to, comp every coach in the series, but at least, throw one out at us. We bring a group there, we get register the feedback, and maybe the following year we include that attraction because we've got more feedback than just me coming and visiting. We're very numbers driven company. So we look at every component, we turn it into a number, and that's how we evaluate what we're going to keep and what we're, going to, substitute. So something like that works, has worked in the past.
Added benefits helps, gets our attention. A meet and greet, something different and unusual. In Pigeon Forge, we did some things this past year with several of the suppliers that it was a service they gave us that our competitors couldn't get. Pink Jeep tours would pull over at the picnic table and bring out a guitar player. Most of the other people went down this really steep mountain road and it was kind of scary. Our customers don't really like being scared in their 60s and 70s. So we ended up selling chicken and picking. And it was better. So look at our customers, look at your product, and what can you give us that might be special? Mayflower can say, hey, we're the only people in the country doing this with that theater. And that gets our attention. We like to be able to say that.
Absolutely.
Exclusive.
Yeah. I like looking at your itineraries, Bob. I like, I get some great ideas looking at your stuff.
You thief.
Not that I would ever take anything.
Some more questions that we have. Do you see any of your itineraries shifting to more outdoors? We talked about theaters. We talked about some of the attractions are outdoors, but do you see a shift in that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Customers are younger, more active generally.
That was one of the questions as well. Do you see the age of your client changing at all? So that just answered that. Yes, you're seeing them a little younger.
I'm not sure younger, but a different generation.
Right.
Still in their 60s and 70s, but they're boomers instead of seniors, and it's a different mindset.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Even going down that whole soft adventure road is something that we do try to incorporate. Anything that's intermodal. If we can get them out of that bus and get them into something else that gets them using a conveyance as a mode of transportation, not necessarily just for sightseeing, but to actually get them from point A to point B, I think is a great, added bonus.
Perfect. So I find this really interesting. We've talked about shows. We've talked about all of the events that we generally go to have these conversations. And Lori, thank you for this question. Looking ahead to trade show season, there's conversations about changing things to virtual, a virtual appointment system. Do you find that useful? Would you attend something like that?
How do I sell a tour if they're doing it virtually in front of their computer?
Yeah, that would be a real struggle, I think. I really enjoy the being able to see everybody in one spot and being able to spend time with people and meeting new attractions, meeting new people. I just enjoyed that atmosphere. I think it would be a very difficult change.
I don't think with a virtual marketplace you can keep my attention for more than 30 minutes.
I don't know, Bob. We've kept your attention for 50 now.
Wow.
I understand what you're talking about, though. This is a very personal industry, which is why I found the question so absolutely interesting to see if that's something that we might be moving into and how we felt about it.
You know, and I'm going to throw this out there, but in my own personal opinion, I would rather go to a show for a week, all right, spend a week out of the office and get everything done, than go to two different, one being 4, one being 5, or something like that. You know, so I'm just there. I said it.
I agree.
No, no. However, those guys work it out. But you know, just do one show, get it all done, meet everybody, and Bob's your uncle.
That might work for younger people, Tim, but not me.
So we are, I can't, and I told both Bob and Tim that this hour would go very quickly. We have about 9 minutes left. We're going to try to get, I still have easily 30 questions that are on the screen here that I'm going to try to get to and move some of them in. But what keeps you guys up at night right now?
The nightmare during the day. It just bounces back.
It never leaves you.
Yeah. You know what? For me, it's the division of the ideologies and politics in this country. That's what really. You would think stuff like this would bring us together, but man, it's just disappointing. So, other than looking at my 401k,
I think everyone here would agree with that, and I would counter that with the optimistic view that it has brought our industry together.
Yeah,
and I think Vicky's the one that posted Tourism Strong, and
yeah, I don't
the 300
think
plus
that
people on this call that want to know how they can help.
You know what? I don't think our industry is going to get through this. We will bounce back. It's just a matter of how we're going to get there.
Right.
And you know, I pray every night that the people that are making the decisions make the right decisions. And
agreed.
You know,
I think we all do. So let's go for the flip side of that. We all work in the travel industry. You guys plan travel for a living. When all of this ends, where do you want to go? What do you want to do first?
Well, I have a Mediterranean cruise, Eastern Med, planned for August. But if the third and fourth quarter are going to be as big as they might be with all this repositioning, I don't know that I can go. One of my favorite types of vacations, when Carol and I just get in the car and go meandering. We don't have a destination. We're just driving, and she'll say left, and I'll go right, and we just go someplace. We stop and see what we want to see, and when it's time to find a hotel, we look for a hotel.
Nice, just explore and see what you find. I love those types of vacations. Tim, what about you?
Me, it's I'm drawn to the parks, the national parks. That's the mountains, the canyons, the trees, anything to do with, you know, I could spend a month in Utah just driving around, and a little touch of Arizona.
They are absolutely.
And maybe a little bit of Nevada.
And,
what the heck?
You saying that, and this wasn't planned at all, I promise to everyone on the call. You saying that reminded me that at the beginning of the call, I didn't thank our sponsor, Tour Operator Land, who has sponsored all of our webinars to make sure that they happened. And they just released their National Parks campaign with royalty-free photos of all of the partners on Tour Operator Land. So thank you for saying that, Tim, even though we didn't plan it, because I completely forgot to say thank you to Tour Operator Land, which caused me to think about it. The last thing that I'll ask, and everyone is throwing in, yay Arizona, yay Utah. I love that we have these chat boxes. The last thing I'll ask you both, because we're winding down here, is do you have any final thoughts on outlook, industry support, you know, anything that we can look towards for the future?
Well, it's coming back. The business is coming back. It always does. I did a staff speech the other day, 7 viruses ago, and it's been just about that with me. I've seen it, several viruses, recessions, and I wasn't here for the Depression, but we seem to overcome all of these things. We overcame 9/11. People are going to be afraid for a little bit, then they come back. In the meantime, be cheerful. Cheerful people travel a lot easier than people that are ticked off about your comment about a politician or a political party. Be positive, get ready.
Perfect. Tim, final thought?
Yeah, you know what, it's much along the same line. It's stay positive. We'll get through this. We've been through this before. Well, maybe not a virus, but we've been through adversities before. We'll get through it. There's going to be some casualties. You know, there's no way around that, but you know, I look forward to getting back out to a show or to do a research trip or, you know, and being in, you know, getting back out there.
Absolutely. I think everyone that has called in, all of our attendees, look forward to both of you guys getting back out there, both personally and professionally. We have just a few minutes left, so I will thank everyone that participated. Bob, thank you so much for taking the time with us. Tim, thank you for taking the time with us. I will be sharing your information, and as always, this particular webinar has been recorded. We will follow up with the recording and also the information for Bob and Tim, so you can reach out to them directly. If you have any questions, other questions, because I know we have questions that we have to answer and get back to you, please let us know. We do webinars, marketing webinars on Wednesday and travel trade webinars on Thursday at 1 o'clock every week. And we just thank you for spending time with us. So we're Tourism Strong. We're going to get through this together, and I hope everyone stays safe and healthy. Thank you.
You know, I just want to say, all these names that I've seen, a lot of familiar names go back and forth, up and down on this little thing, and I miss everybody. And every one of you owes me a beer at the next convention.
And you know, there's over 300 people on this call, right?
There we go. All right, then let's change it to whiskey. It's less filling.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, you guys heard it here. 300 people. Right. Give Tim a call.
Right. Cheers.
What, Bob?
Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry.
So I really appreciate you both. You guys have a great afternoon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again. Be safe.